Just letting you guys know you can listen to my No Bleeps podcast anywhere you stream podcasts or on my No Bleeps YouTube channel. Link in the description. Hey guys, it's Billy and welcome back to Sesh. This entire situation just got way crazier. Even James Charles is coming out with a statement against Shane Dawson now that Trisha Paytas has come out with a new video detailing new information about Shane Dawson feeding her bad information about a ton of people, trying to get her to make videos about them. James Charles literally tweeted out saying, "It's so liberating when people finally start to see what you've been seeing all along." Trisha said that she is now opening up her eyes and seeing that Shane Dawson was not the person that she thought he was. And I just want to give you guys a couple updates since my last video because there is obviously a lot of stuff going on right now. But first, let me give a little recap for anybody that does not know what is going on. Trisha Paytas has come out and said that she is no longer friends with Shane Dawson and Ryland Adams. They have decided to stick by Jeffree Star, even though Jeffree Star has made horrible comments about Trisha's face, skin, weight, try to call her poor, all of this stuff, and let his employees comment about her in this negative way. They've all admitted to saying this stuff about her, and despite all of that, Shane and Ryland have stuck by Jeffree's side, even though Trisha has expressed to them that Jeffree has traumatized her. Him and Ryland are lying about knowing any of this information at all, which is such a lie because we all know that this has been happening for a very long time, that her and Jeffree have not been friends. But Shane says that he has to stay loyal to Jeffree because Jeffree was loyal to him last year during the whole internet takedown situation, even though lots of people have been coming out recently and telling Shane that Jeffree talks about him behind his back. But even still, the two of them are standing proud. Besides Jeffree Star, and Ryland had the audacity to make a podcast about all the drama going on because literally, no matter how messed up Trisha Paytas has been on the internet, the entire internet right now is pretty much in agreement that Trisha was very loyal to Shane, and he is choosing to not be loyal to her and take the side of someone who has literally, according to Trisha, told her to jump off of the balcony when they went on a trip together. And so everyone is pretty much in a collective agreement that Trisha Paytas does not deserve to be treated this way by someone she was so loyal to throughout his entire internet scandal. But Shane and Ryland are choosing to gaslight her and take Jeffree Star's side. So Ryland made a podcast, quote unquote, addressing the situation, which a lot of people did not think he was addressing the situation. He got a ton of backlash, took the comments off the video. It was because in the video he was saying that he never knew how Trisha felt. He didn't know that she didn't want them to be friends with Jeffree Star. When in reality, Ryland knows exactly how she is feeling because he's felt the same way. He's on an episode of his podcast, The Sip. It is the episode right before the new year. It's called Our Last Episode. He says in this episode, around 21 minutes, that him and Lizzie were not friends. His co-host Lizzie and him were not friends because Lizzie was friends with someone that he was not friends with. And I'm just like, wait a minute. What? So you know exactly how Trisha feels, and you literally in your past have unfriended someone because they were friends with someone who you did not like, and you're over here like, oh, I don't know why Trisha feels like this. Like, you've literally done that before where you were like, I'm not going to be friends with you because you're friends with that person. It literally 100% makes him look like a hypocrite. I still can't believe Ryland had the audacity to gaslight Trisha and then say she could have come to us like she did. And also, you're not saying you're going to do anything about it, knowing 1,000% now how she feels. So, I mean, hello, you can't just say like, we didn't know. Well, now you know. So what are you going to do? Nothing? Okay, we have our answer. It's ridiculous, just ridiculous. And it's clear that Shane and Ryland have Trisha's like worst interest in mind. And they literally threw her to the side all these years. Maybe they just like kept her around because she promotes Shane like crazy. And you guys, this feels like what Tati was saying happened to her with Shane all over again. And I'm going to get into that because Trisha actually made a new video and she goes into way more detail about how Shane was behind the scenes now that she's literally opened her eyes. There were a lot of people that were saying it's in his past, like he's different. And even Trisha is coming out and saying he's not different. This man is not a good person, period. So in her new video titled Shane and Ryland Are Little Scum of the Earth, she said that she feels so dumb looking back on their friendship. She's now seeing things in a different light and it's insane, and seeing how unimportant she actually was in his life. Like when Shane and Ryland became like a group with Garrett and Andrew, she was pushed to the side. And she says that she's finally realizing that he wasn't as good of a friend to her as she thought. And during that time, she was questioning maybe I'm not being a good friend, but it was really just Shane pushing her to the side and just showing little ways that he actually wasn't loyal to her. and she's finally seeing that. She says that it's the type of friendship where they treat you badly, but you just can't see it because they try to pretend that they are there for you. She compared it to a toxic relationship. She said that she was only important to Shane when he fell reputation-wise, and she said that he was always feeding her information about people, like David Dobrik and such. Like, he'd be like, oh, he's a sociopath. And she is a person that, gets really riled up, and so when he was telling her stuff like that, she's obviously going to be like, oh my gosh, like, it was triggering for her to hear that stuff because she obviously had bad blood with Jason and David and the entire vlog squad. And she would be like, I don't want to trigger you, but yada, yada, yada. Like, why are you trying to trigger her? As she was talking about this stuff, she was just getting overwhelmed. Like, wow, like, ooh, like just going like that and saying that she was realizing more and more things about Shane and the things that he did to her and the things that weren't actually nice or him helping her at all. Trisha says that she owns up to all this stuff in her past and present and says that these people just never do that. They never take accountability at all. She says she finally watched D'Angelo Wallace's video about Shane and said that she didn't know about a lot of the stuff in that video. She is shook by the stuff and she never wanted to watch it in support of Shane because that was her best friend and she was so blindly loyal to him that she didn't want to see or support anything negative about him. They are definitely messed up for throwing this friendship down the drain and taking advantage of her loyalty, honestly. She confirms that Shane had a falling out with Andrew and Garrett and they are no longer friends, which has been speculated, but now Trisha's confirming that. She says that Shane says it's something that they did, like Garrett and Andrew did, because he never can take accountability when it comes to losing a friend. And that's exactly what basically Ryland did for Shane on that podcast. Like, say, oh, we didn't know anything, taking zero accountability for their friendship ending with Trisha. She then tells a story about Peter Mon meeting up with Shane Dawson. Peter Mon made a video where he said that he was hanging out with Shane Dawson. The two of them had met up and Peter wanted to hang out with Trisha and Shane says, oh, she's a pathological liar. And she says that he actually said this to a lot of people and she just disregarded it. But now that she has like a clear mind and she's hearing this, she's like, wow, like Shane really was talking bad about me behind my back. She says like she now has the worst feeling about Shane. And something I want to bring up is that on Ryland's podcast, The Sip, when Jeffree Star came on for one episode, Trisha has been saying for the past couple of days now, rehashing this entire Jeffree situation, that Jeffree made comments about her being poor because she rents her house instead of having bought her house, which she actually just bought a massive home. So Jeffree can F off, but renting does not make you poor. Like, renting just means like maybe you're trying to feel out the area or you don't know if this is where you're permanently going to be living or anything like that. And when he was on the podcast with Ryland and Lizzie, he made a comment saying, I bought my house like unlike other YouTubers, and they're all laughing. They are all laughing.
But monthly, yeah, it's expensive, but my mortgage is really low. Unlike a lot of YouTubers actually paid for my house. Yeah.
Jeffree is talking so much about how Trisha is poor because she rents, then it's more likely that he's talking about her in this situation, and they're all willing to laugh about the situation. And even if they're not laughing about Trisha specifically, they're all laughing about someone renting a home. That's not funny to me. Trisha did retweet this clip from the podcast, and she did take it very personally that they were saying that Jeffree bought his house unlike other people who didn't buy their houses. She says that she is so shocked mostly, but she shouldn't be. She says that she was just truly desperate for true friends, and he just honestly, in my opinion, took advantage of that entirely. She says that he saw him go through friends and she just always thought oh, I'm the real one then because I'm always around. But in reality, he was talking bad about her and using her. So before we get into what Trisha says next, I want to remind you of Tati's video from last year, where she said in this video that Shane was in her ear telling her about James Charles, wanted to edit the video, the bi-sister video, the thumbnail, and said that Shane and Jeffree put a wedge between her and James Charles' friendship, and it led to her making bi-sister. Shane called James a monster, said that there were victims. According to Tati, every day they came to her with new victims and allegations and said they were putting together interviews for their docuseries. And listen, Tati messed up on her own. I'm definitely not trying to be oh, it was all Shane and all Jeffree. No. Tati did make that video. She's a grown woman. She made that video without any proof of anything, no evidence. So that was wrong of her. But I just want you to focus on the part where Shane is in her ear talking about how bad James Charles is and all this stuff. And also last year, one of Jeffree Star's old employees came out and said that he overheard a phone call before bi-sister even came out where Shane was the one that was going off about James Charles to Jeffree Star. Meanwhile, when all this stuff was going down, James, Tati, and Jeffree were the only ones that were getting called out. Shane was left out of the backlash for the entire Dramageddon, and it was only last year that this stuff started to come out where people were like, oh snap, Shane had involvement, he's not who we think he is. It seems like this might be like a major pattern of behavior. That's what Trisha is thinking, because Trisha is saying that Shane was feeding her things about James Charles, and during the entire Teddy Fresh drama he was saying things like, oh, did you know James Charles stole this makeup look? And she said like she felt like she had to be this voice for Shane to speak on his behalf. Like when she was going off about James Charles in defense of H3H3, she was like, oh, did you know this? Because Shane was giving her information negatively about James Charles. Trisha thinks that this is what is happening with Ryland, that he's like this puppet to Shane, and Shane knows what's being said on the podcast, and Ryland is saying all this stuff on behalf of Shane, because Shane sits in the room when they record and Shane literally edits the podcast. So for Ryland to say like, oh, we didn't know how Trisha felt, Shane knows exactly what Ryland is saying on the podcast. And she says she has no interest in ever mending the friendship. She doesn't support any of the three of them. For Ryland and Shane to have told her that they were scared of Jeffrey, and for Ryland to have told her before that like he was mean to Morgan, it's just so weird that you would want to keep someone in your life that treats you badly. But I don't know, maybe it's a clout thing. She says like Shane does this BS that the internet gives him anxiety when he seems pretty brave, when he like is supporting bad people like Jeffrey and Tana. The entire internet is literally saying right now Trisha is bad, but she deserves to be supported for being loyal, and Shane is choosing to blatantly be like, okay, I picked Jeffrey. Like, you know you are messing up if you are on a break from the internet and you're in a new scandal. Like, running from your problems doesn't solve anything, and in fact it's honestly making them worse for Shane. Like, Shane isn't speaking out at all. He had Ryland speak for him. She says that Shane can't take ownership. He hides behind his anxiety, and she's saying like it's a cover in order to like not have to like come out and own up and address things. It's ridiculous at this point that Shane still thinks that he can hide and not address the situation truthfully. Like, let's not gaslight Trisha. We all know the situation that's going on. If you want to choose to stand by Jeffrey, like, come out and tell us why. And also, please explain like why you said that you were going to distance yourself as well, please and thank you. The situation is extremely frustrating, and I cannot even believe that we're in this situation. Like, there's so many things that I'm just like, oh my god, what? But I want to know what you guys think about this entire situation. Do you think that Shane is going to come out and make a statement? Do you think that Ryland is going to come out and make another statement? They confuse me, and I don't know what the end goal is for them, because I just don't think that they're going to be making big coins ever again with Jeffrey. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I love you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye, guys.